everybody. We are here living the authentic life, and I am so excited to have a revisit from Donna Chang, the CEO of Hope Bioscience. We shared so many incredible stories about the hope that they offer to people through the stem cell services they offer. And I'm thrilled to share with you guys that our daughter Bella has been through, okay, now I'm going to cry, Jessica. 9 rounds of stem cells with this incredible company, and it has changed her life. She has lived with chronic pain from the time she was a young girl, and as a mom, I was just like, oh, you're growing. These are growing pains. You're fine. And we've met with doctors and been around what feels like the world trying to get help. And stem cells have enabled her to live a much more normal life. And we are here to share a lot of that incredible journey. And that's what brings Jessica Rossman to join us. This badass, hot, smart, cool, amazing chick, but legal counsel, head honcho, like of the legal, right? What is the
international counsel here?
Yes, like some title so fabulous, I can't even say it all. But stem cells have changed your life because they've changed the life of someone you really love. And that's what you're here today to share about.
Yeah.
So, Donna, tell us the proper terms, because we're like what she says. She's this really smart one, the scientist.
Right. So I'm going to hijack your podcast. I'm sitting in between both of you. We at Hope Bio deal with a lot of families and a lot of patients, of course, that come in with all kinds of really tough circumstances. And it's the caregivers that I love to interact with, because you really get the background, like what the real struggles are. I think patients are always trying to be strong. And anyway, it's incredible that that we have your support and coming together to do something really awesome, which is what we'll talk about later. But what we do, real quick, just to get everyone a background on what Hope Biosciences does. We essentially developed a technology to be able to isolate stem cells from our own bodies. So we have stem cells. Every one of us have great stem cells. And I use this example all the time. If you get a cut you suddenly see you bleed, and then you get a scab that forms, and you are able to heal yourself. It's no different than what happens when we hit our heads or we have a heart attack. Our bodies naturally go into repair mode. And so there are stem cells in our bodies that are in charge of this repair process. And one cell in particular, called the mesenchymal stem cell, we're going to call them MSCs for short.
What she said. Right.
MSCs are really amazing. They do a variety of different functions, but they basically help in the repair process. And so when it comes to disease, they're disease agnostic. Like every time you go for medication, the medication has a specific indication for use. Like, what are you using it to treat? And that's because most medicines have a single chemical pathway. It's doing a very specific thing to fix a very specific problem. Stem cells are different, right? They're in your body. They go and naturally find areas that they have to go fix, and then they will differentiate, or they'll reduce inflammation, or they'll improve the blood flow. There's so many different things that they do. And so when it comes to disease, they can do a lot of different things. And that's why, even though the patients that we're talking about today have totally different diseases, the treatment that they received are all the same. And they also received treatment under various programs. There are different ways to be able to access these treatments. But in our first podcast, I think we were talking at that time initially about Bella's health struggles and where she was, and exploring this as a treatment option. And her physicians got on board, and we were able to get her authorized for access to this treatment, because it's an experimental treatment. So in the United States, you do have to have permission to access the treatment. And so she was able to access it.
Under the Right to Try Act.
Under the Right
that
to
it
Try Act.
just recently I guess it was 5 years ago or so that this even became an opportunity.
In 2019.
2019,
the law was passed, but we didn't make it available until about 2 years ago.
And it's in Houston, Texas. And I think that's what's so amazing is that she is able to leave school and go receive stem cells and go home and be in her bed that night.
Yeah.
And I think that's remarkable. And people don't realize that technology is available to them. And that is also what makes your mission different as a foundation, is your interest in getting this technology, this process more available to more people.
Right. And so that is like the next part of the story. You know, when we developed this technology, it was, you know, like, how do we get this out? How do we make it available? In what ways, right? And clinical trials are traditionally the way patients have access. Now, Right to Try program, the one that Bella participated in, is a access program directly from the manufacturer. And again, it's only for experimental treatments. And so in 2020, we started the Hope Biosciences Research Foundation. And the point of it was to initiate clinical trials that were for specifically unmet needs, for needs that the community wanted to see happen. So other foundations came alongside and said, hey, we would like you to study this disease. And that's how we were able to initiate it. And all the stem cells that are used in clinical trials and expanded access were at no cost provided by the manufacturer. So it's like this amazing way to get clinical research to more people and to people who really, really need it.
And let's talk about how you two came together and about Gordon's journey.
Well, it's interesting because the access piece is what I think is so interesting, and especially where Gordon comes in, right? So Gordon Bethune and I, anybody,
first you have to talk about
right, Gordon. So Bethune. So for non-Houstonians, or perhaps who don't know who he is, so he was the CEO of Continental Airlines for 10 years. He took over. He's sort of the turnaround guy at Continental. And so wrote a book about it, Worst to First, because, and I was an attorney at Continental for 10 years, and then an attorney for another 10 years with United when the two airlines merged. And so 20 years in the airline business. And so, so Continental Airlines was failing in the 90s. It was just a mess. It was at the bottom, any list of the top 10, it was always like, enthusiastically like 9 or 10 at the bottom of the list. And
Enthusiastically.
Yes, it was a tough, they were having a hard time. And they finally lured Bethune down to take over. And he inherited, he took over and didn't realize really what a mess he was walking into and how much work he had to do. But he did it, and he did it quickly, which will not surprise either one of you guys, because this is a guy who makes things happen, and he's all energy, 100%, mind, physically, he's just on it. And so
I hate to interrupt, but my husband and I were reading the case because we were read, all the Forbes and Entrepreneur, articles, and we were just seeing what's so amazing about him is not just his ability to turn the numbers around and save a company, because you look at that from a just business standpoint, but his ability to connect with the customers, because I remember the highlight of the story is how the customer service was the worst, and he brought it as the best, like the
Number
airline
one.
you want to
Yes,
call, and I don't think there's any airline you'd ever want to call.
And he's such a beloved CEO, and that is not a word normally associated.
Like,
no offense to you,
it's like
but
top 10. I think
Yes.
it's a top 10,
up there with
in the United States, at least,
there was a list at some point recently where he was named top 10 CEOs, worldwide. I mean, industry wide, I should say. So Steve Jobs and Lee Iacocca, and names that you've heard. But we love him, and the customers loved him. And importantly, the only reason the customers loved him is because the employees did. And happy employees make all the difference. And so that's the only way. And so he inherited a bunch of, people who wanted to work hard and run a good business and be happy at work and be happy with people who wanted to fly and have a good experience. And he made that, he made that possible. And in 1 year, it really is pretty remarkable. But in 1 year, when he took over, it was like $600,000 in the hole, bottom of all the lists. And within 1 year later, it turned a profit of $250,000. So that's like $1 billion swing in a year, with on-time bonuses and people making it happen, and employees just got a jolt of energy with support and, a feeling of we're in this together. And he would call it a canoe, like you can't be in one end of the canoe and sink if I'm good. We're in the same canoe, right? So if you sink, I'm sinking. And suddenly we were all on a high, and I joined on that high, right? And while he was still CEO, and we were just, suddenly number one and across the board, and customer satisfaction and bags and on time, and everybody was happy, and people were, I think, were even liking the food once in a while. And so we were in a good place. And he left on that high. So he left in 94.
Yeah.
And so, and
then he sat on like every major board.
He has. Yeah, he's been busy ever since. So now he got very good at retirement. We became partners in 2007. And so during his retirement, and while I was still working and he was out not working. And so that's good. And so, life has a way of throwing curveballs. And just as he took on Continental, he found out several years ago that he had Parkinson's. And he has spoken about it, and it's not a secret. If you know him, you know that. And, Parkinson's is a tough deal, and it's degenerative, and there's no cure. And so that's just the way things are. It's nothing to fix. But, well, I'm going to take that back. We can fix quality of life with traditional medicines, which he was doing, but then he heard about you, and he heard about Hope Biosciences, and from someone like Bella, who was a client and a patient and a believer, and he came in to talk to you, right? And this is experimental, and so it's not available to just anybody, and even you mentioned clinical trials, and he was willing to say, take me,
a participant,
experiment. Yeah. I'll let's see what happens. And he had aged out of even the clinical trial.
And clinical trials, unfortunately, are always designed for a very specific study population, because you don't want people who are too sick. And generally, people who are older are not included because, you don't want, older people have other health issues that can, impede the study progress. So you don't want to include patients like that typically.
Yes.
Yeah. But just like in true Gordon style.
Right.
Well,
Who's going to make it happen?
There's got to be a solution.
Right.
There's got to be a solution.
There always is.
And I think the first question was, well, would it be safe for, so older folks can't participate in a trial. Why can't there be a trial? Is there any reason why you see that it wouldn't be fit?
Right. And the other thing people say is, so how can you take stem cells from someone who is sick and grow their own stem cells and have them heal if the stem cells you're getting are
older and sicker?
Or sicker, even for Bella, young and sick.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's so funny because that's how our brains work. Right. We're programmed to think, well, there's something wrong with me, so there's something wrong with our cells.
Mm-hmm.
What if there's something wrong with me and my cells are depleted? The healthy cells that I have are not depleted because of my illness. Think about it that way. And so what we do is we take some of those cells out, healthy ones, we find healthy ones, and then we replicate those in incredibly high numbers. So, so anyway.
And that part is just mind-blowing to me, that's the science part of it.
Yeah, well, it's even the playing field, certainly for patients like Gordon, right? That how would you be able to get a quality medicine that can work using his own body. And that's where the technology really shines, and its ability to be able to do that.
And it's an infusion. And it's not targeted at an area that needs it to be targeted. The body figures out what area it needs and sends the cells there.
Just like when you're sick and you recover, your body knows exactly where to send the cells, knows exactly where they need to go. Like your body signals its cells and tells them what to do and how to do it. That's the part that we'll never really be able to explain. We know, like biologically, how these cells work, what the mechanism is. You know, we have to explain these things, you know, in order to get FDA approvals and all the things that we need, which we can. But ultimately, at the end of the day, how it improves a patient across so many different symptoms, all of it's very difficult to explain. But that is like the magic of the way we're designed.
And so tell us a little bit about the specific study that he was in and the other patients and how that went about, because I think that's truly the most amazing gift that anybody could give, is the gift of health to other people.
It's the best story.
It's the best.
It's the best story. We have a video of this story actually available on YouTube on our Hope Biosciences Research Foundation YouTube channel. There's a link to a video that we made for Gordon. But it was once the study, he said, well, you know, older people deserve a chance. Let's create a study for that, and I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
Will you pay for it? You know? And he wasn't joking. It was like the next day, you know, we had the money to start, and we started 10 patients. We enrolled them right away. In fact, we had already a long list of patients who didn't meet the age criteria or were too sick, and we were able to put them in right away. You know, he'll never know those people, but he changed those lives, and we
hope that's the case.
And the crazy thing is, one of the people he helped is a friend of mine's father, and she was at the event, and she went up, the luncheon you hosted, and she went up and spoke to him and said, I want you to know you saved my father so much pain in his life, and you changed all of our lives. So it's so beautiful. And I remember the day that you told me that we could find a way to give Bella this opportunity. And there is a cost involved with it. Not everybody is able to get them free, but that's part of what this research is about, is how to get, and what your foundation is set up, is how to create this more cost effectively, how to get this into more people's hands. That's what I feel like the mission that differentiates your strategy as a research foundation, sorry, I'm just dripping over here. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the foundation is, again, created to spur research, to get it done quicker without all of the normally time is what we don't have enough of. And it takes so long to give everyone an idea, to get a drug from start to finish, like to approved through all the processes. Right now, they conservatively estimate it takes about $2 billion to get a drug approved, and 12 years.
Wow.
So patients don't have time, and clinical research has normally been reserved for pharmaceutical companies. And the bigger they are, the more the bigger trials that they can get done. And that is unfortunate for smaller innovators and smaller companies that can't get research out that quickly. And also, the rare disease space never sees light of day when it comes to advancement in treatments for them, because a pharmaceutical company will typically look at what the market size is.
Right.
So if your market is not big, then they typically won't study it. So there's a lot of circumstances like that. But the research foundation is not directed by profits or pipelines. That's what we say. The research foundation is typically just looking at what the immediate need is, and is there a solution for it that we can use. Right now, this again, all the cells that are provided by Hope Biosciences are provided at no cost. So there's no charge to patient. Nobody is paying for this. All of the research is done and hopefully can get a body of data out there published so that there's more awareness and then maybe someone will come along and develop it. That's the hope. And so that's why we are, it's an innovative model. The model for the foundation doesn't really exist anywhere else. No one's really doing clinical research for the sake of, we wanted to do it to help the people in our community. That was the first and foremost. And if we learn something from it, great. And we're gonna learn something from it and we're gonna publish it so the world can see it.
And I think it's so fascinating that even the government, the Department of Defense, is giving you funding for the research. So that really, for some reason, hit me in a way that I was like, wow, there is so much significance to this because all stem cells are not created equal. And so because there's so much confusion because of the category of stem cells, some people immediately discount it at all. Specifically, doctors find it. And so talk about some of your collaborations with the Department of Defense, and also aren't you doing some things with, is it UT Health or?
Yes. So this is outside of the foundation. We had collaboration originally with UT Health Houston it was Hope Biosciences' first clinical trial for traumatic brain injury. We did that. We started that back in 2018, and that trial ended, and that the trial data was submitted to Department of Defense, and they are funding right now the larger phase 2 study. So that is currently enrolling. If there's anyone with traumatic brain injury that's interested in that trial, that is currently enrolling right now at UT Health Houston, and will soon enroll at UT Health San Antonio. Yeah.
Wow. And can you share some of the successes that you've found with Parkinson's, specifically when it comes to Gordon? And you can share maybe some of the things that he experienced.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things. Parkinson's is characterized, typically you can see it in facial expressions, in a person's gait, their ability to walk, like you'll see it in shuffling, and obviously the tremors that come along with it. So those are all symptoms. But I think what really affects Parkinson's patients over time is it's I think the fact that there is no cure at the end, and they're dependent upon the medications that are available right now are to supplement the dopamine that their brains are not producing, and they know that because there is no cure. I think that it just makes a really difficult. It's a difficult scenario to mentally get through. So the mental implications of the disease is something that we really we notice in all patients that come through. That's the hardest part.
And I've got to say, that's where, and no pun intended, but that's where Hope Biosciences and just Hope as a human being comes in, because really without that, and I think that that's what your treatments have given Gordon and whoever else was part of that trial, and anybody who's in Gordon's life, like me, because importantly, him, right? Because there's traditional medicine, and he knows that he has a degenerative condition, and so he's supposed to be getting worse, right? And he's had this for years and years. So he should be, he should be in bad physical shape, right? Some of the things that you mentioned, and he's just not.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is being good about traditional medicine. A lot of it is being disciplined with physical therapy and other things that you can do. But I am convinced that his stem cell infusion therapy that he does with you guys every single month, And as you said, it's really easy to do. You just cruise on into, it feels like going to the spa, basically. You just
That
cruise.
view of the water.
Yes, you sit in front of a lake and you take your dog and your dog sits in your lap and you chit chat and there's snacks and it's just, you sit, you kill time. You can schedule it with a friend who might be going through the same thing, or you bring one with you, and it's just changed everything to the point really where he's just in better shape now than he was when he started. When he was diagnosed, he shouldn't be. And I really think that it's you guys. And so I think it's physical. I think it's the treatment that he's receiving from you. I think it's stem cells to the point where I want to come in and bank my stem cells now while they're still younger than they might be later on. I'm not going to say they're young. But so it's the physical piece, right? That's given him hope. And physically, he's just better. And then it's the mental part where it changes everything. Right. I've done a lot of research on Parkinson's that I never thought I would do. But there's one documented case of Parkinson's going into remission. Sorry. And I tell him it's going to be the second. It's with your help. Yeah. So
it's like stopping the progression of the disease. People think, oh, well, that's not enough. It has to be some remarkable recovery. But what's so remarkable about it is what that means for the future of Parkinson's. If you get the disease, as soon as you're diagnosed, if you start the treatment, then you may be able to live a perfectly normal life, right?
And normal life is what
that's all.
That's what you started by saying.
Just to live a normal life.
Feel good.
To be a normal teenager. To be
a normal teenager. Right?
Like that was the goal. Just to get to a baseline.
Not too much to ask for.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the way we learned about Hope Bio was I was invited by another mutual friend whose entire family receives treatment to watch the video. And remind me the name of the video. I can't.
It's called The Long Haul. So it was the first clinical trial we did, the foundation did for long haul COVID. That was such a long haul COVID. Anyway, that clinical trial, we made a movie out of it with the patients that participated in that trial. And I think you were in attendance.
I was in attendance.
Yeah.
And then I realized long haul COVID is in essence dysautonomia, where the autonomic nervous system doesn't fire correctly. I use non-medical terms when I talk, but you tell me it's good because normal people like me can understand it. But basically, it's what Bella had. And we don't know if hers was from COVID or from the COVID shot, but it's one of the things that she suffers with. And it happens, it manifests as tachycardia, gastroparesis, fatigue, brain fog, a lot of different things. And when I watch that, again, I'm a strong woman, but it appears I cry a lot. But I'm watching it crying, going, wow, there's hope. And you go to so many doctors that tell you there's not hope, or they tell you it's anxiety, or they tell you it's depression, or they're not aware of all this technology. And so that hope factor, that's a big part of it, is that you are there believing you can be better. There's something in that too. But there's also truly, and you had her record the difference, and that was amazing, and you've done this quite a bit, is you've created pain assessment thresholds for diseases, and she's working with you guys as her senior project on creating a pain assessment survey for hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos patients. It's basically a connective tissue disorder with body pain. But how you change, because we knew she was feeling better because we could see it on her face. She could sit through dinner. She wasn't taking a nap after school. She was going out with her friends more. But she would say, I don't think I feel better. But we knew that she was back to old Bella.
Yeah.
And we could see the change before she saw it. And that was like at 3 months. And then at 6 months, she really started to notice it and acknowledge it. And I think there's a fear too, like if you had not, I don't know, I would think she'd want to latch on to that, but she didn't. Also, she's super smart. I think she overthinks everything. Wonder where she gets that. But but talk a little bit about all of those things. Those.
Yeah, she is one of the strongest people I know. I wanted to say, the amount of medications she was on. Right.
Yes.
The amount of medications. I
and
think
the
that was
side
so
effects.
surprising.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's hard to know.
Because you don't know if the medication is causing the other thing.
Yeah, right. That was what made her case very challenging. Yeah.
And you can't submit it as a test study because she's on so many medications.
Yeah, she is one that would classically not qualify for any clinical trial, just given the amount of secondary issues she had along with all the medications and everything. Yes, really difficult.
But talk about some of the ways that you measure success so that people can understand that it isn't just mental.
Well, all of this, and I think what, the emotion that we get when we talk about what we do and the way we all even, feel the same thing is rooted in like sound science. And I think that's what true hope is,
Yes.
Because like when you had mentioned how people react to stem cells and how doctors react to stem cells, you're absolutely right. And how they react, the skepticism that they react with is actually the right way one should react. 99% of what's out there is a lot of fraud, a lot of false hope, a lot of false promises. Stem cells are not all created equal. It is highly dependent upon the quality, and that's, I think, what we're trying to educate people on, is that as much as it's silly to think that these are individual medications, like our cells are not medications, right? So it's kind of silly that we're going through the motions of having to do the approvals in a medical way, in a traditional medicine way. But nonetheless, the reason why we have these regulations is because there is just so much bad stuff going on. And so you have to be able to parse out what's real and what's truly made well and will likely lead to something that works, right? Because you want to know that when you buy a medicine that it works. So how do we prove that these cells work? Okay, so we know at a cellular level, which is what we explain. Then on top of that, when we go into clinical trials, we are looking at, every disease comes with certain assessments, whether it be Parkinson's, there are movement scales, there's also patient assessments. They talk about how they're feeling, what's changed in their daily activities, quality of life, pain, all of that is measured in these scales. Scales are not always accurate. You can imagine a pain person, their pain might be decreasing over time, but the day they come in for their assessment, they're having a bad day. You can see how these things really are difficult, especially in Parkinson's. I would say Parkinson's is one of the most difficult indications to study. And I would think that the greatest injustice is not approving medicines that actually do work, right? Because and a lot of times we can be developing great medicines, but we can't design a trial that can show that. We just simply can't, because there's not a good assessment for it, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So there are diseases like that where we've studied, like long COVID. Long COVID doesn't have a biomarker, like a blood test that you can measure. Did someone actually get better? And you're relying on someone telling you, oh, I'm definitely better. Well, are you sure about that? It's very, very hard. Yeah. A lot of times clinical trials, especially in diseases like Bella has been dealing with, doesn't have good assessment tools. Yeah.
But you've mentioned something. You used the exact same words that I've used, and so many of our friends have used, and it's that you're back. Right, so you're the medical smarty scientist person, and we're just sitting here experiencing the benefits of that, right? And one of the benefits of stem cell therapy that Hope Biosciences is doing is that they brought Bella back, and they brought Gordon back, and I've told him that, right? I just said, You know, whether or not you feel you might be having a bad day, and you might not feel that any change, although he does. He knows and appreciates it and fully conscious. But one of the pieces that a person can't experience is the experience that we're having about you, right?
Yes.
And the experience is welcome back. You're back. You're back to where you have a hope. You have chance. So, and your personality is back. Your happiness is back. You're comfortable. You're you again. And so that's what we're trying to get to.
So let's share with people how they can be a part of this community, how they can get involved, how they could bank their stem cells, how they could learn about the opportunities for their families, and how they could join us at the gala.
Yeah, so many ways to participate. First of all, thank you for your help in I'm not a party planner by any
We
means
might
of the
enjoy that part of life.
So these ladies have come alongside us to host our first gala, and it'll be October 26th. It's coming right around the corner. Please come out. Support us, listen to the stories. We're going to have amazing stories from patients. Yeah, Jessica and Gordon are chairing our event. And you guys have come out of the woodwork because you guys haven't chaired anything in a really long time.
We haven't. And for him to chair.
I remember
That's
you
amazing.
saying, is he going to chair?
I just thought, this is going to be a tough one. But you guys, it was a snap decision that was done before. Yeah, literally. He came home. I was getting ready to sell it to him to figure out how do we convince you, and he came home announcing that he was chairing with me. So so he's back.
So
he's fully on board. And even if, and one thing that I do love is that on the Hope Biosciences website is there's an opportunity, even if you're not into galas or can't go or just want to pitch in another way. It's so easy to do. You can just drop down and make a donation or support, and you can say who you're thinking of at the time or where you want it to go. And there's a Gordon Bethune Parkinson's Disease Fund. There's other funds on there as well where you want it to be focused. So there's lots of ways to support incredible, innovating things that you guys are doing right here in just so close to Houston.
Yeah.
And I have banked my stem cells, and I went through that process.
Me too.
And good. And
I feel left out now.
it was almost like I would describe it as they're taking fat out of your stomach, and everyone's like, "Oh, don't you want them to take more?" I'm like, "Oh, I did," but
you do when
you don't.
When you sign up.
but then you're like, so. But anyway, it was an interesting process, but it's something you can easily do, and a lot of people are doing that for future. Like if they needed and tell a little bit about that, because one of your emails you sent out, you said kids are going back to school, they're going to college. Do you want to bank their stem cells? Tell a little bit about that mindset, why families might want to do that, even for young people.
So banking stem cells, I think people normally think about banking stem cells like when they're pregnant and they're about to give birth, and they'll ask, do you want to bank cord blood? And cord blood contains a different kind of stem cell. We won't get into that.
And we can't use the cord blood for this. It's a different technology.
It's totally different. It's only for
because we
blood.
did that. Right. We did that for Bella, and that we let that go.
Yeah. It's because the stem cells that are banked in cord blood are called hematopoietic stem cells. They make only blood. So red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets. So the diseases we're talking about are not blood-based diseases. So therefore, there's a very limited application with those kinds of cells. But mesenchymal stem cells, the MSCs that we're talking about, can be banked. Now, they can be banked as a newborn. They can be banked as an adult. So we do both. But in newborns, we'll take the placenta.
Okay.
And we'll take that placenta tissue. And in adults, we'll take the fat. So the source is different, but the process is the same after that. We're going to isolate the MSCs from that tissue, and then we make lots of cells, and then we store it. Now, why store? You know, it really is the future. I think at some point, everyone will have their cells stored somewhere in some repository, because, 20 years from now, they'll be making organs from those cells. There's a lot of different applications that will be used. But right now, there are ways to access your cells through different various programs and also clinical trials. So yeah, that's why people are banking. And that banking supports, it obviously supports the manufacturing side. I don't want to mix those two up. They're two totally distinct organizations. I just happen to be involved in both. But the banking supports the existence of Hope Bio and our ability to do what we do. And again, all the cells that we do for clinical trials and for research are all provided to the foundation at no cost. Chronic pain, and it really depends on your physician. And we've seen osteoarthritis, only very severe cases of osteoarthritis, where everything has been tried. There's a list of things that have to have been exhausted before someone can qualify under that program. But yeah, it is.
It's a broad range of how things that you can help because of the way that the cells work in the body to go in to help. Because people say to me, well, how could I do that? And if, because it is a little bit different. How do you, when people come in, what are the sorts of questions you would ask them when they're trying to understand stem cells?
Most of the time, patients are coming in through their physicians. So we have a physician that inquires on behalf of the patient. Yeah, most of the time, when clients or patients are calling us directly, it's normally, how do I bank my cells? What do I do?
Okay. And then I have a friend whose son is autistic, and there's been studies also about autism. Can you share just a little touch on that in the ages? Because I know there's some definition there too.
Yeah, there are studies. We do not have a study in autism, and we have not treated anyone under in a clinical trial setting, but there are many out there, and the autism itself is a very complicated.
Yes.
It's a complicated when it comes to, there's so many different symptoms, and there's also no way to assess. One of the difficulties in studying autism is the way to assess improvements, because it's a scale, right? It's a spectrum disease, so there's a large scale. So how can you really track, when someone's improving? Individual symptom management is difficult because everyone has different symptoms too.
Yes.
Every person with autism has different symptoms. So it's very difficult indication to study, which is why we don't do it. But yes, there have been requests under Right to Try, and we evaluate those one case at a time. Yeah.
All right. Wonderful. Well, we've been talking for, I think, over 45 minutes. There's so much we could share. Are there other things that you'd like to share, Jessica, we haven't touched on?
I think we've kind of covered it. I mean, the physical and the mental importance of the proper treatment and of what you guys are doing at Hope Biosciences. I mean, that's the really the message for me, is that there's so much going on, and it's so important to keep you guys doing what you're doing, because you're helping,
love
you're
to do what we
lives.
do. We love to do what we do, and we're so proud to do it. And as long as the community wants us to do it, we will be here doing it. Yeah, we'll be here as long as you want us to do it.
Yes, this community wants you. So thank you so much, guys. And I'm going to put you on the spot. We have to have you come back and talk about your incredible career, because you are such a badass and such a cool chick.
Both of them.
And we have to talk fashion a little bit too.
We can always do that.
Yes, exactly. But I think that the main point of my podcast is to talk to people who have found a way to come alive in their lives. And I think Hope Bioscience enables us to really come alive, because it helps the people we love the most come alive. And I think that it is truly the greatest gift, besides praying for someone, I think giving someone hope in their health is truly the most incredible thing that we can do for somebody we love. And you give us all so much hope. So thank you for joining us. Thank you guys for listening. Please share with your friends and go to, what is the website?
hopebio.org.
Okay, great. All right. Thanks, guys. Until next time. Bye.